Alright, so in today's video, we're going to be learning how to fertilize air plants. This is something that's actually not necessary for them, but it is possible and can help promote blooming if your air plant does bloom. I'm going to go over quickly some fertilization basics and science behind it. So if you've seen my other videos, I go over this in them as well, and you're welcome to skip past it. Alright, so number one, only fertilize your healthy air plants. If you're trying to save one that's dying, fertilization can actually stress it out more and could possibly kill it, so just make sure it's in tip-top shape. Spring is generally the best time to fertilize since most houseplants or air plants will be going through an increased period of growth due to the more sunshine that is coming through in spring. Third, plants in shade have a slower metabolism, so kind of going off of our last tip, if your plant is in a shaded area, it won't be growing as fast and therefore it will not need as much fertilizer as something that's in full sun. And lastly, less is more with fertilizing. If you're worried about harming your plant or burning it with fertilizer, always be conservative. It will never hurt to be on the more conservative side rather than using too much fertilizer. Alright, so these three numbers that I'm pointing to here right now are found on all fertilizing containers. They're good to know, so I'm going to go over them. They stand for the percentage of active ingredients in the fertilizer of nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium in that order, and we're going to quickly just review them. Alright, so first is nitrogen. It's a major component of chlorophyll. It allows the plant to absorb energy and controls the greenness of a plant. So if your air plant kind of greens up, it's usually due to nitrogen. It's a huge important nutrient for all house plants. And next is phosphorus. It helps the roots, buds, and flowers, helps cell division, tissue production. For an air plant, this is kind of the nutrient that will help it blossom if it's capable of doing so. And lastly, we have potassium, which can help the vigor of the plant by catalyzing its enzymes, and it also regulates the stomatas, or those little breathing pores that are on a plant. So I'm just quickly washing this bucket that I will be putting my fertilizer into, just to avoid any sort of contamination. And once you're filling it with water, just make sure you reference your fertilizer container to know how much water you're going to need in accordance with how much fertilizer you're using. You're going to need enough water to let your air plants soak in it. You won't be dumping this onto them. They will be sitting in the water. So I'm using Jack's 20-20-20 fertilizer. It's recommended for Tillandsia to use a 17-8-22 fertilizer for air plants. But this is close enough that I feel comfortable doing it. I don't fertilize them super often, so I'm not too worried. But if you do want to fertilize them more, I recommend using a 17-18-22 that's specific for air plants. And like I said earlier, if you're worried about hurting your plants, just go on the more conservative side and just reference how much you should be adding with the container. And when you add it in, just give it a good stir around to incorporate it fully into the water. So now we can actually fertilize them. Simply place them in the water, push them down to submerge them. You can leave them for a couple seconds, up to a couple minutes. They don't need a ton of time though. And if you notice some burning on these air plants from too much fertilizer, simply just run them under running water for a couple minutes to get rid of all that extra fertilizer. There you have it. That is how you fertilize Tillandsia or air plants. Definitely, like I said earlier, not necessary, but it can promote reproduction and blooming. Thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below if you were able to try this and how it went for you.